I wanted to take a swing at the what do we do question, because my answer to that question really does change if I'm depending on what kind of audience I'm talking to, right? When I'm talking to Black folks, my answer is, well, what you're supposed to do, brother, is survive, right? Because white folks have done this to us before. We have seen this before, and we have survived this before. As Karen was kind of alluding to, we know what's about to happen. White folks is about to happen. White folks is what's happening. And Black people need to survive this current eruption and fever in white supremacy. White folks, when I'm talking to a predominantly white audience, they have different responsibilities. You know, they have responsibilities to get over themselves, deal with their own race, you know, all the kind of usual stuff that you would tell white folks in 1862, that you would tell white folks in 1959. Like it's the same story that white folks have to have to learn to chew with their mouths closed and get over themselves. But in this moment, Black folks just need to survive this, because we are in a phase that we have been in before, and we are experiencing the white violence against us, and we need to go into survival mode. But Karen, you're shaking your head.
I completely disagree, and I think the centering of whiteness as a thing, as if a group of people that's spend $1.6 trillion, and you could ask Target the impact of that. We may be 15-16% of the population, but can shut down a corporation because we decide not to go there because we spend more than any other group in this country. That's power. So I'm not surviving this. I'm thriving in this. I'm not surviving. I'm coming out the other side where I'm not dependent upon a system that never considered me anyway. So I'm not even centering whiteness. Do what you do and see how it works out. Because I guarantee you, just like building up this country, you needed us then, you're going to need us again. And if we ever figure out where the real source of power in this country is, it's going to be a different ball game. So I'm not surviving this time. I'm thriving and building and not centering anything that they're doing. We're going to figure out neighborhood by neighborhood what we need, and we're going to provide it for ourselves. We're going to feed ourselves. We're going to educate ourselves. Go ahead, tear up the education system. You haven't really cared about our education anyway. Who gives a damn? Go ahead, tear it all down. I'm like, let's go. Not surviving, thriving. And I feel like that's a victim mentality that I will not ever adhere to. And how
do you translate across? I mean, I love that and would agree with it in large measure, but how do you translate that in a way that it's actualized? Because, telling people to thrive in the face of what Elie's describing becomes, in this day and age, largely because we are locked into these boxes that people see on the screen right now.
Yeah.
We are locked into a different kind of social contract in which what our, white and Black grandfathers and great grandparents, dealt with to thrive. Those aspects of our humanity of thriving, I think, have been morphed or changed in ways that I think make that a little bit more difficult. I'm going to give that to Molly, because I know you got to run. So to give you the word on that before you go.
I'm just honored to be with this group. I'm sorry that I am a mess and divorced and not bringing my A game.
Can I say it's nice to meet you? I hope we can connect at some point.
Please do.
Amazing.
Well, I was listening to you and I was like, oh, I got to get her on the podcast. And by the way, like, I do think the Rev was also involved in the Reverend Al was also involved in the Target protest. And I remember when it started, and like, that is amazing. Like, that is seismic. And I do think we don't spend enough time talking about, like, just how there is really good organizing going. There is actual really good organizing going on. And like, we get so stuck in all of the bleakness of this moment, but the Target protest is a real example of, just like with the lawyers, this is not going the way they want to go. And one last thing before I go, Trump made inroads with Latino voters, right? Maybe you saw yesterday, the woman who runs Latinos for Trump, not pleased. So as much as like he's grown his coalition, God knows how, But I think there will be a sort of lesson. I mean, I don't want it, and it's terrible, but there is this way in which he has, Democrats spend all this time being like, how can we win back Latino voters? And he is now jailing Latino voters. So I just think that's worth thinking about. I'm so sorry. Goodbye. I appreciate all of you. And please keep, sorry.
Molly-Jong Fast, everybody. Thank you so much, Molly, for being with us. I really appreciate your time. I think for me that, Karen raises, I think, a very interesting set of issues. They're not problems, they're issues. And how do you navigate? I tend to align with Karen in that regard, in that I'm just going to do me, because I'm not expecting anybody to make it better for me. And so I've got to create that lane. The question becomes if and when the obstacles, John, are so high that, you've got bootstrapped thugs, jackbooted, law enforcement on the ground who are buying into this bullshit. You've got business leaders who want to strip away your identity, your heritage, and your history because they're afraid of dear leader in that bullshit. How do I carve out that space where I'm going to create a life for my family, grow the business that I have, and continue to try to thrive in an environment that is more and more repressive?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Michael, because I really want to talk to your viewers about Bitcoin and how it can change your life and change your entire family's economy and outlook. And
what about buying gold, John?
Well, I have a whole seminar. I have an entire seminar at the airport Radisson just this weekend about buying gold. And the Church of Scientology.
Do I need to clean my gutters out first?
You need to forget what you've heard about Dianetics and just read the book for yourself and understand.
It's liver health.
Well, we're going to make America great again, you see, and I'm here to give you white people a sense of dignity. And that's how it works, folks. Look, this guy's invoking the Insurrection Act like it's a promo code, okay? He's not fighting chaos, he's manufacturing it. And most of us can see that. And the problem is those charming, non-college educated Caucasians, and quite a few of the ones with degrees, they don't mind it. But that's the one insurrection that's actually underway. The California thing's been brewing. I mean, cutting the UC research grants. Like, this should have outraged all white people. This is going to sabotage cancer cures. This is going to stop genetic breakthroughs. But hey, we're going to own the libs and make grandma die sooner. I mean, right. At some point, the fact that all these policies are like sawing off your own head because your brain disagrees with you is going to weigh in on people. Now, with California, they give the federal government $80 billion more than it gets back. So, if Gavin Newsom wants to take a break from prepping his new reality show, Dancing with Fascists, I think Gavin's learned that maybe MAGAs aren't the pals he was hoping they would be. But he can just come out and say, should we reinvest that money? We could have sent the federal government to welfare states back into our economy. I mean, that whole thing was all rubbish. Congress controls the purse strings. Trump couldn't do it. But it shows the media is on the side of clicks. It's not that they're on the side of Trump. It's that boring governance doesn't get the eyeballs. So you can't count on the media. You can count on journalists, but not the actual media. I think this is another area where capitalism may save us, where the market realizing this bullshit doesn't really help the bottom line may save us. Elon's realizing that he's beholden to the shareholders, even more than the voices in his head. What I keep thinking of is Berlin and those white people, and how those particular Caucasians needed to see Berlin in rubble before they could believe that their leader had not been straight with them. They needed to see how much damage has been caused by their believing in him. And that led to a national shame, which is why they don't wave their swastika around like we wave our Confederate swastika around in this country, because they actually had to face the consequences of their vote. I think it's going to have to get worse before it gets better. And a lot of good people are going to be hurt. But I have no doubt whatsoever that it is going to get better. The winner in all of this may be the 7 inches of plaque around Donald Trump's heart, because that could be the game changer any day here. But in the long run, we're going to need a Democratic Party that can at least spell the words Truth and Reconciliation Committee when this is done, because this will not last. As Elie said, the incompetence is too great. This is a lot like Bush, who Might still be worse than Trump because he won't come out against him. But under Bush, the stupid was always greater than the sinister. And that incompetence kept us from a fascist state under Bush Cheney. That same incompetence may save our lives here. And of course, noble patriots like Rand Paul for opposing this stupid bill. But Trump has got the losses. His base doesn't know he has the losses because the media is not covering the losses, but he's getting smaller and smaller and smaller every day. And the people who own this country, the oligarchs who use Trump's golf course and think he's cute, they're going to get tired of this too.
One of the reasons, though, John, that the media doesn't cover the losses is because the Democratic Party that you alluded to, and whenever I hear that name now, I see red. The Democratic Party that you alluded to is the most incompetent opposition party rolling in the modern world. Like they are beyond pathetic.
Elie, if you talk that way anymore, I'm going to write a letter. You got one warning, or I get a letter.
This podcast.
I think that speaks to something Lucy was saying when she mentioned the Republican Party. What's the Republican Party? Who's the Republican Party? Are these Republicans? Are these Democrats? Like, who's the Democrat? I don't know who the Democratic Party is. I don't know who these people are.
Time. Democrats have time right now. Democrats have 2 years to get this together.
Yeah, but who are they? Who's leading it?
That's what they're going to figure out right now. And they're going to have a big, big crowded primary season as soon as the midterms are over. Democrats have 4 years to figure out who they are, and that process is already underway. Let me just remind everyone, Vice President Harris was in that race for 100 days. Against the most famous man in the world, and she got the third highest amount of votes anybody's ever gotten in the history. Kamala Harris got more votes than Ronald Reagan did both times, than Bill Clinton, than Barack Obama did both times. The majority of Americans have shown up to vote against Trump in 2016, 2020, and 2024. There is no mandate. There is no incredible bulwark of support that can't be knocked down for this guy because the majority of us, 3 elections in a row, have said no to his agenda. He hasn't got the mojo going. He's got the power, but he can't go long term with this, and it's going to collapse on him like it did last time.
But you know what? Democrats are not understanding that they're in an asymmetrical warfare environment. And Democrats are taking, in my opinion, the wrong lessons from 2024. And there have been many, many postmortems. They're conflating policy with rhetoric. They don't understand, actually, if MAGA shows you anything, marginal voters who flipped this time. Actually, there are a lot of progressive policies, a lot of policies that used to be Democratic Party bread and butter that a lot of people might really, really like. I mean, I'm an ex-Republican. My politics are pretty centrist. I don't think that my politics are where most Americans' politics are at all. I think that most Americans want to tap into something much more populist. I'm not a populist, but there's a form of populism that can be healthy. They want to tap into something much more progressive. And instead, you've got Democrats falling over themselves. They're like, how do we win back David Sachs? And like the Silicon Valley guys. And like, I mean, are you kidding me? Right? It's like, oh my God, do you know what went wrong? Kamala Harris came out in favor of rent control. And that scared the titans of industry, who are what? Anyone who's telling you that that's why they didn't vote for her, they weren't voting for her anyway, right?
Exactly.
But on the issues, but if I may,
these two things.
On the issues, though, I'll stop with this. On the issues, look at the issues that people care about, and they go with the progressive issue.
Yeah,
paid family
leave,
decriminalizing weed, tax billionaires more. Medicaid should cover vision, hearing, and dental. I'm sorry, under Medicare. I mean, issue after women's reproductive freedoms, issue after issue. The people are already there. The Democrats are walking around like Clark Kent without a phone booth.
And to your point, John, if Republicans, rank and file Republicans, were more honest about that, they would show through their words and their actions that they align with the very things that you're talking about, because they don't want their grandmama's Medicaid to stop. Yeah. They don't want their cousin's SNAP program to end. They don't want that person who's helping them around the house to be deported. Yeah. They don't. But what they offer.
But Democrats. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, but what they're offering up, to Lucy's point, is this sort of fake populism that somehow they think, going back to your Berlin example, that world is going to be very different until it gets burned down. And then they realize, oh, but at that point it's too late for you because grandma's Medicaid has been canceled and she gone now because she had no health care.
Yeah, but
the SNAP program ended and your kid is trying to find out what they're going to eat for 3 square meals. And the person who was helping you saw them carted off by ICE. So those realities are going to come home.
But I want to try to answer Karen's point about like who are the Democrats, because I actually think that's that's an incredibly important question.
Please,
as you know, if we're ever going to have an opposition party, and I think that while we can debate, should we be more left, should we be more centrist, what policy agenda do we want? I feel like what gets missed in those debates is that the consultant class of the Democratic Party needs to be like burnt out of the ground, right? Needs to be like ripped up root and stem. These people are idiots. They've paid no price for, frankly, fucking up 3 elections in a row. Because as John's saying, there is no way Trump should have won any of these elections. And while it's fashionable to blame the women candidates, oh, Hillary didn't run a good campaign, Kamala didn't run a good campaign, like who was advising them at point after point after point? And even if you look in our current primary process, like who the fuck is advising Wes Moore told him to veto the reparations bill? Because that was an idiot move. That was a Democrat consultant idiot move.
Yep.
And so there's some level at which whoever the Democrats are as a party, the people who are paid money to tell Democrats what to do need to be stopped in some kind of, like aggressive way.
Mark Penn effigies of Mark Penn hung from buildings.
Oh my God. If the oh my God, Mark Penn, don't even get me started on.
But that's what Ellie's talking about. You're exactly
right. He's MAGA, but Mark Penn is MAGA now.
I like it.
Yeah,
but Democratic operatives, I will say this, I've worked on both sides of the aisle. Now I spend all my time trying to burn the Republican Party to the ground and trying to get Democratic operatives to listen to me. Republicans, not top down, actually. They are like, let all flowers bloom. Like, let's see what works. Throw that spaghetti. We'll see what sticks. Democrats are like anxiety cats. I mean, just not to bore people with campaign tactics, but like in the last election, they weren't even doing voter contact by like a week to go because they were still doing persuasion. And they were like, let's centralize all of our ads. And we're going to test so much. Like, I love political data. I love polling. I love tactics. Like, you know what ad is not going to persuade anyone of anything? The ads you don't cut. The ad that dies on the cutting room floor. The ad that people never see. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a thing in DC. It was a meeting of, it was a group that does a lot of work with Black and brown voters. There were people who were social influencers who have multi-hundred person followings, 100,000, pardon me, multi-hundred, multi-100,000 or million person followings, talking about how at the DNC, they were being given, I mean, these are people who are like collecting information. And some of them, by the way, became social influencers because they were field organizers. Like they were like Black Lives Matter activists who got a big following in the summer of 2020, who now have a profession as a social influencer. And they were talking about getting talking points from the DNC instead of the DNC saying to them, like, what are you hearing, right? Like, what's resonating with your people? It is so reversed and crazy. On the other hand, Republicans, I mean, not to make people feel really all the ick, but I've been trying to remind people of what Republicans do and what Andrew Breitbart used to say to Republicans. Politics is downstream of culture, right? And Democrats think that they can have culture be downstream of politics and be prescriptive. And when you have a bunch of the sort of like Acela corridor Dem operatives whose entire experience with anything in the field is that they went to Pennsylvania for a weekend last fall to door knock, making the playbook, you're going to consistently get a really bad product. And that, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Elie, in short. I hope that comes across. They're a disaster. It's a disaster.
Well, you know, but it in some respects, it kind of reminds me, and I've had this conversation with a number a number of times with folks over the years. I remember when I came into the RNC in 2009, we had just been shellacked in the 2008 elections, and we had gotten our ass kicked in the 2006 elections. I know that well. I was on the ballot for the U.S. Senate. And the reality was, as I walked into the building, I was hemorrhaging donors. I was hemorrhaging grassroots support. The base was pissed as hell. There was statewide disorganization. I found out of 50 states, only roughly 12 had websites that communicated with the American people. And so there was this feeling in the party that it was over, lights out. We are been rejected. We've been rejected by the American people. So for me, it was a matter of tapping into that thing that would reawaken the imagination of the American people relative to the party and the party relative to the American people. I ran into a lot of resistance, a lot more than has been recounted publicly about from the very people that you guys are talking about, that the culture class, right? The folks who believe that the country is a far right country and it's not. The political class that's living in a limbo land where they think, to Lucy's point, that because they showed up for a field trip in Iowa, that somehow they've got political chops. Certainly the K Street class, those folks who write the checks and try to persuade through their money, were knocking on my door telling me I had to pay for races they lost. Why am I paying for? Well, it's a bonus. I don't pay bonuses for losing races, right? So those realities hit hard. So the problem the Democrats are having are similar to the ones after the 2006-2008 elections for Republicans, and that is finding that orientation. How do you reimagine the conversation with the American people?
May I on this?
Yes.
Because I'm upset. I'm not a Democrat, and I never have been. I do think that Mr. Schumer is going to tastefully transition out of leadership after the midterms either way. And again, they've got 3.5 years, Michael, to begin this rebranding. They do have time. I think they know to some degree what a mess it is. But to Elie's point, I don't know if this class of consultants in their private jets, which eat up donations and spit out bad advice, can ever be saved in this party. But what I think they have to do is start telling the truth and calling out bluffs on immigration. I think they need to come out and say that any Republican, any politician of any party who talks about illegals, but doesn't want to go after the white people doing all the hiring, they're the problem. And they're the reason they're here. There's a gigantic help wanted sign at our southern border, and white people put it up. And there's no wall you can build that's big enough to hide that giant help wanted sign. And no Republicans are interested in taking down the help wanted sign. By the way, friends and neighbors, have you noticed Donald Trump won't go after the agricultural workers? He's already said those illegals who pick your food,
right,
well, they are a protected class because it's all about money. Now, Democrats can come out and say, we're all part of the same hypocrisy. But if you like not paying $75 for a salad, you can thank an illegal alien. And so the smart Democrats can come out and risk a lot of donor money, but say we're all part of this hypocrisy. I am submitting a law that makes it a federal crime to hire any undocumented immigrant. That would put Donald Trump behind bars because he's the only president in history to hire illegal aliens because he didn't feel like paying a living wage to American workers. And Trump did it in 2 different centuries. Why the Democrats are terrified to call this out is a microcosm of the cowardice. But I also think, and again, Democrats who promise, hey, law and order comes back. The Democrats who show up in this campaign season and say the Constitution is back in play in January of 2027, we are having hearings and every member of this cabinet can make all the money and insider trading they want now, but your hands go on Bibles in January of 2027. Those are the guys and women who are going to get the votes, and they're the ones who are going to get the donations. People don't want to watch Gavin Newsom give a pedicure to Charlie Kirk. They want to know who's going to fight about this. And finally, I want to see Democrats come out and have the guts to say that Republicans aren't a party for men, not real men. And Democrats would say that recognize being a real man is not about how many people you can dominate. Being a real man is about how many people you can help. And it's not a hard message for Democrats to link the Gospels, the Constitution, and their agenda in one sentence. I want to see them do it and start bringing back men and let Republicans keep the boys, guys, homies, and dudes.